There was always something oddly comforting about the smell of cinnamon in Lena's mother's kitchen. Warm, nostalgic, like a lullaby for the senses. But today, the smell didn't bring comfort. It stung. Lena stood silently in the doorway, her arms crossed, her jaw tight, watching her sister Meg pour organic cane sugar into a mixing bowl as if she owned the place. Because technically, she did. The kitchen, the house, the family bakery downtown. They had all been signed over to Meg. And Lena had found out about it through a forwarded email. 6 weeks ago, after their mother passed away in her sleep, Lena had flown in from Chicago, heartbroken and sleepless, thinking she and Meg would sit down together, cry into old family albums, and decide together what to do with the estate. They had run that bakery side by side every summer since they were teens. Meg had stayed behind to care for their mother, while Lena chased a dream in the city, but never once did Lena think that would mean being erased. At the reading of the will, the lawyer, a man with no bedside manner and a stained tie, flipped through papers and mumbled, "Everything is left to Megan Elise Dalton, sole heir." The words didn't register at first. Lena had blinked slowly, then looked at her sister. Meg didn't meet her eyes. No explanation, no letter, just silence. And now, 6 weeks later, Lena had returned home to pack the rest of her mother's belongings from the attic, the home Meg now legally owned. The same one she used to sneak out of when they were kids to attend late-night lake parties. The one Lena had painted the pantry door in when she was 10, leaving a blue handprint in the corner that still remained. "You don't need to hover like that," Meg said now, not looking up from the batter. "If you're here to judge how I'm running things, save it." "I'm not judging," Lena replied, her voice low and tight. "Just stunned you're making Mom's gingerbread recipe without her recipe book." Meg finally looked up. "She gave it to me before she died." "Right," Lena said with a bitter laugh. "Of course she did." There was a pause thick enough to drown in. Meg wiped her hands on a dish towel and leaned back against the counter. "You think I asked for all this? You think I wanted to be the one stuck here wiping her mouth and watching her disappear day by day? You left, Lena. You got to live. I got to wait for death." Lena's fists clenched. "I offered to help. I asked if I should come back. You told me she was fine." "She was fine, until she wasn't. And by then, you were too busy curating cheese platters for investment bankers to care." The words sliced clean, but Lena didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she walked past her sister into the narrow hallway that led to the pantry, the same pantry that had once hidden cookies and childhood secrets. She opened the old wooden door and stepped inside. That's when she noticed it. A piece of masking tape, yellowed with age, barely hanging onto the inside of the upper shelf. Her fingers brushed it away, revealing a folded slip of paper tucked behind a tin of cloves. She pulled it down. Her heart thudded. It was her mother's handwriting. Lena's hands trembled as she unfolded the note. The paper was brittle at the edges, the ink slightly smudged, but the writing was unmistakable. Her mother's soft loops and slanted cursive that always felt like a hug. "If you're reading this, it means I couldn't say it to your face. I'm sorry, Lena. I wanted to protect you. But I think I may have made a mistake." She sat down on the pantry floor, knees pulled to her chest as her eyes scanned the rest. "Meg was here every day. She gave up so much for me. I thought the only way to thank her was to leave her everything, but it didn't feel right. Not without including you. I asked Robert to update my will. He said he would, but he never brought back the new papers. I didn't realize until the week before I passed. The bakery. It was always yours in spirit. You were the one who dreamt of franchising, of sharing our story. You had vision, Lena. I hope you find this letter, and I hope it leads you to the truth." There was no signature, just a date. 3 weeks before her mother died. Lena exhaled hard, the air leaving her lungs like a punch. She stared at the letter for a long moment, then folded it again, gently, like something sacred. "Lena?" Meg's voice echoed down the hall. "You all right?" Lena didn't answer. Instead, she came out of the pantry slowly, holding the note like it might burn her if she gripped too tight. Meg's face shifted when she saw it. What is that? A letter, Lena said. From Mom. Meg's jaw tightened. Lena watched her carefully. Did you know she tried to change the will? I don't know what you're talking about. She wrote this 3 weeks before she died. Said she asked Robert to update it, but he never came back with the new documents. Meg's eyes flicked to the note, then back to Lena's. That letter doesn't change anything. The will was signed, notarized. It's legal. But it wasn't what she wanted, Lena said, her voice shaking. Silence swelled between them, louder than words. Then Meg said flatly, You always needed everything to be fair. Life's not fair, Lena. You think just because you came back, there's some big correction coming? No, Lena said. I don't think it. I know it. Meg scoffed and turned back toward the kitchen. But Lena didn't follow. She walked out the front door and got in her car. There was one name she hadn't heard in years, but now remembered with crystal clarity, Robert Feldman, their mother's old estate attorney, the man who was supposed to update the will. She typed his name into her phone. Still practicing. Address, 92 Maple Lane, 10 minutes away. She drove with the letter on the passenger seat, the scent of cloves still clinging to the paper. Her mind raced. Why hadn't Robert followed through? Was he negligent, or something worse? When she arrived at the modest office, she expected to find a stiff man in a suit. Instead, a young receptionist looked up at her with sympathy the moment she entered. You're Lena Dalton? Lena blinked. Yes. How did you... Mr. Feldman's been trying to reach you for weeks. He said something about a letter and a missing file. Lena's breath hitched. He did try to update the will? The receptionist nodded, already reaching for a folder. He gave this to me in case you ever came in person. He retired last week, said he needed to clear his conscience. She handed Lena a worn manila envelope. Lena opened it with shaking fingers. Inside, copies of emails, scanned documents, a draft will naming both daughters as co-owners of the house and bakery. Unfinished, unsigned. But there it was, the intention, the truth. And a sticky note. Forgive me, I should have tried harder. RF. Lena stared at it, her stomach turned. Meg had known. She must have. The hesitation in her voice, the look in her eyes. It wasn't ignorance. It was guilt. And guilt meant leverage. The jingle of the bakery bell was the same as always, a soft chime that used to sound like hope. Now it echoed like a warning. Lena stepped inside the shop and paused just behind the counter. The scent of fresh bread, cinnamon glaze, and something overly sweet hit her like a memory she didn't ask for. The bakery looked untouched by time. White tile, brass fixtures, the chalkboard menu in Meg's neat handwriting. Customers bustled around, laughing, sipping lattes. To them, it was just another weekday. To Lena, it was a minefield. Meg stood behind the counter, smiling as she boxed a set of raspberry danishes. She looked up just as Lena reached the register. The smile dropped. We're a little busy right now, Meg said, wiping her hands on her apron. We need to talk, Lena said, her voice calm but firm. Meg glanced at the line behind her, then gave a tight nod. Fine, office. They slipped into the back room, the old supply closet their mom converted into an office decades ago. It still smelled faintly of vanilla and floor polish. The second the door shut, Meg spun around. I told you, Lena, that letter doesn't change anything. No, Lena said, setting the manila folder gently on the desk. But this might. Meg's eyes narrowed. She opened the folder slowly, her face falling with each page. She stopped at the sticky note, her fingers trembling just enough to betray her. He tried to fix it, Lena said, but you didn't let him. Meg looked up sharply. I didn't stop him. But you didn't tell anyone either. I wasn't obligated to. It wasn't signed. There's no legal... I'm not talking about legality, Meg. I'm talking about Mom. Meg flinched. Lena pressed on, her voice quiet now, edged with steel. She asked for something different. You knew, and you said nothing. For a moment, Meg didn't respond. Then she sank into the chair behind the desk, like the wind had gone out of her. You were always the favorite, she whispered bitterly. She talked about you like you were some golden prize, even when you were gone. I was the one giving up my life, cooking her meals, cleaning up her pills, and still she made it about you. That's not true. Yes, it is. And when Robert showed me that draft, I thought, of course, even now she can't give me one thing. Lena swallowed. You already had everything, Meg. You had her time, her trust, her last years. And I didn't want to take that from you, but you took the rest without asking. Silence ballooned. Then Lena leaned forward, her tone shifting. Here's what's going to happen. We sit down with a lawyer. We draft a new ownership agreement, 50-50, house and bakery. Or, if you'd prefer, I can take my half in cash and walk away. Meg's head snapped up. You're bluffing. I'm offering, Lena replied, because the alternative is going public. I will sue to contest the will. I have the attorney's note, the digital trail, Mom's letter, and if that doesn't stick, well, emotional damage and estate fraud make for an interesting headline, especially in a town like this. Meg's face crumbled, her mask sliding clean off, not into tears, but into something more dangerous. Fear. You wouldn't. I would, Lena said, standing, but I'd rather not. I don't want to burn the bakery down. I just want back what Mom meant to give me. Meg looked up, eyes red, lips pressed thin. You really think we can still run this place together? After this? Lena's answer came with a sad smile. We ran it every summer on nothing but sugar, sweat, and sibling rivalry. What's changed? Meg didn't reply. Lena turned to leave, her heart pounding but her spine straight. In the mirror by the door, she caught a glimpse of herself, strong, tired, and still standing. Back in the kitchen, the timer buzzed. The gingerbread was ready. Lena sat across from a lawyer who looked nothing like Robert Feldman, young, sharp, with a voice like polished glass. Her name was Marin Ortiz, and her expression never flinched, not even when Lena laid everything on the table. The letter from her mother, the draft will, the note from Robert, and the verbal fallout with Meg. This isn't an open and shut case, Marin said after a long silence, flipping the last page of the file. But what we do have is leverage, especially if your sister knew about the draft and didn't disclose it. She knew, Lena said. I saw it in her face. Marin tapped her pen thoughtfully. Then we make it known that we're willing to mediate, or litigate, and we start by pulling the business records, especially if the bakery is generating income. If she's been paying herself through it solo, that matters. Lena hesitated. How fast can we get that done? I already filed a request to the county for property income records, but it'll be faster if someone inside can help us. Lena's mind turned, fast and precise. There was someone? Sarah. She used to manage the morning shifts before Meg took over full-time, a quiet woman with sharp memory and no tolerance for nonsense. She'd abruptly quit 6 months ago, just around the time their mother's health nosedived. Lena stood up. I know who to talk to. Sarah lived in a quiet cul-de-sac, the kind where every porch had a wind chime and the dogs barked in lazy harmony. She answered the door in slippers, her face tightening when she saw Lena. I don't want trouble, she said instantly. I'm not here for trouble, I just want the truth. Sarah hesitated. Does this have to do with Meg? Lena nodded. Then come in. They sat in a sunlit living room with crocheted blankets draped on every surface. A mug of tea steamed between them. I quit, Sarah said, because something didn't sit right. Your mother? She was lucid one week, confused the next. It didn't feel like a natural decline. I started noticing Meg giving her different pills, white ones instead of the blue capsules. I asked about them once, and she told me it was a new prescription, but she looked nervous. Lena felt the blood drain from her face. I didn't know what to do, Sarah continued. Then your mom collapsed in the kitchen one night. Meg didn't call 911 for over an hour. She told everyone it was a quiet evening. But I was there. I saw her hesitate. Jesus, Lena whispered. I tried to tell the hospice nurse. She brushed it off. And after Mom passed? Sarah looked away. Meg offered me hush money, said I could take a 3-month bonus or a glowing reference. I took neither. I left. Lena gripped her mug tightly. Would you be willing to talk to a lawyer? Sarah paused, then nodded. If it means your mom's wishes finally matter, yes. Later that evening, Lena returned to the house. Meg was outside, hosing off the front porch, her hair tied up, her arms bare and tense. She looked like someone desperately trying to clean something deeper than dirt. You've been digging, Meg said before Lena could speak. I have. Meg killed the water. You think I hurt her? I think you were desperate, Lena replied evenly. And in being desperate, you may have done something unforgivable. A pause. Then Meg's eyes hardened. You really want to take this public? I want the truth. Mom deserved that, and so do I. Meg turned toward the door, then stopped. You're not the only one she wrote a letter to. Lena blinked. What? Meg didn't respond. She walked inside, but the damage had been done. Another letter? Where was it? What did it say? And why had Meg kept it hidden all this time? That night, Lena couldn't sleep. Not because of guilt, not because of fear, because her mother, quiet, sentimental, fiercely loving, had apparently written a second letter, and Meg had kept it secret. That alone was like an ember burning under Lena's ribs. She lay awake until 3 a.m., her mind spinning. What would that letter say? Did it contradict the one in the spice tin, or deepen its message? And where had Meg hidden it? By sunrise, Lena was already dressed. She didn't bother with breakfast. She walked through the creaking hallways of her childhood home, back into the kitchen. The same kitchen where everything began. The smell of stale ginger and the echo of old laughter lived here like ghosts. She turned toward the pantry. The door creaked open with a soft groan. She stood still for a moment, then dropped to her knees. The note she'd found earlier had been taped to the inside of the shelf. That had felt deliberate, planted. If her mother had hidden one letter with that much care, she might have hidden another, somewhere deeper. Her eyes scanned the seams of the floorboards, fingers brushing along the grooves. And then she saw it. A sliver of metal, rusted, flattened, tucked between two wooden planks. She wedged her fingers beneath it. It gave slightly. She pushed harder, heart pounding. The board shifted. It wasn't nailed down like the others. With a low creak, it came up, revealing a shallow compartment beneath the pantry floor. Inside was a tin box, dark blue, sealed shut with an elastic cord. Lena's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, a folded letter marked simply, "To Meg and only Meg." A small velvet pouch, a photograph, worn, faded, of their mother holding both girls as children, laughing so hard her head was thrown back. Lena hesitated. Then she opened the letter. My Meg, if you found this, I pray you've forgiven me already. I asked Robert to update my will. I needed to make things right with Lena. She deserves half. She deserves her place here. But more than that, I need to tell you what I never had the strength to say face to face. You were my anchor, my nurse, my brave girl. But somewhere along the way, you started believing that sacrifice meant ownership, that pain earned entitlement, that love could be paid back in deeds. But love, my darling, is not a transaction. You are not owed everything because you gave up something, just as Lena is not undeserving because she chose a different life. You are both my daughters, and I needed you to share this house, this legacy, not just the bakery, but the weight of it. If you're reading this after I'm gone, please, don't let resentment be the inheritance. There was a deep pause inside Lena's heart, the kind that choked. She sat in the pantry for a long while, her back against the wall, the velvet pouch in her hand. When she opened it, a single gold ring fell into her palm, delicate, familiar. Her mother's wedding ring, the one she hadn't worn in her last months. Lena pressed it to her lips. Meg had known. This wasn't just about real estate or nostalgia. Their mother had entrusted both daughters with 2 separate letters, threads of her final plea. And Meg had hidden hers, buried it, and in doing so, buried their mother's last truth. Later that afternoon, Lena stood at the bakery again. This time she didn't ask permission. She walked into the kitchen and held the blue tin box out to Meg, whose face paled instantly. "You buried her twice," Lena said. "Once in a coffin, once beneath a lie." Meg's fingers clutched the edge of the counter. "You went through my things." "No," Lena said calmly. "I went through our house, the one she meant for both of us." Meg looked away, jaw clenched. "Did you even read it?" Lena asked softly. "I couldn't," Meg whispered. "I knew what it said. I knew it would feel like losing again, like being told I still wasn't enough." Lena stepped closer. "You were enough. You are. She just wanted you to stop bleeding to prove it." Meg said nothing. Lena placed the tin on the counter. "We're going to the lawyer tomorrow. You, me, and Marin. We split everything. You can choose to stay angry, Meg, or you can choose to be free." Then Lena walked out. For the first time in weeks, her hands didn't shake, and the bell above the bakery door chimed like a closing chapter, one step closer to the final page. The office smelled like stale coffee and polished wood. Sunlight filtered through frosted windows as Lena sat across from Meg and their respective attorneys. It should have felt clinical, cold, but instead there was an odd stillness in the air, as if the house of cards they'd built between them was ready to collapse and rebuild, plank by careful plank. Marin Ortiz spoke first. "We've reviewed the estate, the prior draft will, the testimonial letters, and the financial records. Given the context and recent statements, we believe a revised ownership agreement is in both parties' best interest to avoid litigation." Meg said nothing. She stared at the wood grain of the table, her shoulders tight but still. Lena, holding her breath, waited. Then Meg finally looked up. Her eyes were puffy, sleepless, but no longer angry. "I want to settle this," she said quietly. "I don't want to keep holding something that was never meant to be mine alone." It wasn't just the words, it was the tone, resigned, raw, honest. Lena exhaled for the first time in hours. Together, they signed the new documents, equal ownership of the house, equal shares in the bakery. Meg kept operational control. Lena would step in for strategy and expansion, and the past, once fractured, began to resemble something whole again. But the story wasn't quite finished. 2 weeks later, Lena received a letter, hand-delivered by a man in his 70s with a cane and a quiet smile. "I was friends with your mother," he said, "from her poetry group. She left something with me years ago, said I should wait until everything's settled." The envelope was cream-colored. Her name was written in thick blue ink. Inside was a final note. "My darling girl, if this reaches you, then you've seen what I tried so hard to fix. I never meant for love to get tangled in legality. You and Meg were my greatest joys, and my greatest fear was leaving you divided. There are things I never told either of you, not to keep secrets, but to keep peace. Your father, he left me with more debt than love. The bakery almost closed in '98. Meg was the one who convinced me to fight for it, and you gave me hope that it could become more than just a place. We could become a name. That's why I chose both of you, not because it was fair, but because you each carried different pieces of me. I hope you learn to carry each other too. I love you endlessly. Mom." Lena folded the letter and sat with it in her lap for a long, quiet moment. She didn't cry. She didn't need to. 3 months later, the bakery reopened under a new name, Dalton Sisters. The walls were freshly painted. The front window displayed a black and white photo of their mother kneading dough, smiling at something unseen. Customers came in waves, some loyal, some new. And at the counter, Meg worked the register while Lena handled the back office and big picture dreams. They didn't always agree. They didn't suddenly become best friends, but they showed up, side by side, day after day. And little by little, they started to heal. One evening just before closing, Meg found Lena in the pantry, sitting on the stool, holding the old tin box again. She didn't say anything, just sat beside her on the floor. The ring still lay inside, gleaming faintly in the dim light. "She would have liked this," Lena murmured. Meg nodded. She would have said we took long enough. They both laughed softly, and outside, through the small kitchen window, the last of the sun dipped behind the trees, casting a soft glow over the house that had once divided them, and now, finally, held them together. The end.